Okay, folks, I think we've got this. I realize this is video, this is voice only right now. If you guys can hear me out in TV land, just give me a quick thumbs up, thumbs down as to how the sound sounds for you folks. All right, then. With no further ado, thank you so much, everyone, for hanging with us on this one. I don't know what the heck is going on with the board lately, but you know what? We'll make it work out one way or another. All right, let me just double check my demo machine over here. Okay, it's alive. Let me get the machine rolling. And all right, the other question I have for everyone is, are you seeing the graphics in reverse order or not? Hopefully you are seeing them right side up and so forth. But if for some reason you're not, let me know. All right, I'm going to see if I can make this happen, and let's press on with the show. All right, so back to me. All right, hopefully my shirt says Gang of Four and not like Glurbum, and we'll take it from there if we can. All right, and I'm restarting the demo machine because I think it also has, when I restarted the main thing, it lost track of which monitor is which, so it's trying to demo things on completely different monitors, and I don't want to mess with it right now. Okay, guys, hi. Welcome to the best produced show on the internet, now extra great produced. Because among other things, our producer is not with us today. His wife is having a medical thing done today. We all wish him and his wife all the best. Hopefully everything is no big deal. But that's why he had more important things than watching a show about comic software today. Can you imagine? Anyway, very best wishes to Greg and his wife. We always can't tell you how much I appreciate having him around, and honestly, that 5-10 minutes we spend chatting and checking levels before the show makes a lot of difference as far as making this the razor sharp polish thing that you guys are so used to seeing on the internet here. All right, let me just double check one last thing with internet connectivity, and then we will get rolling. All right, closing this extra window over there. We look good over there. And checking the demo machine to fire up ComicBase, and then I think we're about ready to hit it. Hope all you guys are having a great pre-Thanksgiving here. We are pulling into the holiday season it feels like in mere moments. Okay, we are good to go. I've got actual graphics up on the demo machine. All right, so let's get down to it. Aura says, I can see graphics. Jesse's with us here. Chris Brasol's in the house. Steve Dassinger's joining us here. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad you could all make it, and hopefully the people who are on the other feed will figure out how to find the new feed soon. I did update the link over on the ComicBase website, and hopefully people will straggle in as we get it here. So what happened there is my last couple weeks, the first time made complete sense to me because I hadn't done a show in almost a month, and at that point, a million things had gone on in my desk area, people messing with the boards and everything else like that. But this time out, we were in pretty good shape, and about half an hour before the show, it was all looking pretty good. And all of a sudden, we started getting an echo down the pipe. And the only thing I found that actually resolves it isn't restarting the soundboard or the switcher or the audio interface or like that. I literally have to restart the whole machine, which is a disaster if you are already doing a live stream, because at that point you never get the live stream ID back, and it's all over and done. Or if you guys know a way to do that and not have it just completely chuck the live stream into the trash heap, let me know, because I have obviously a lot to learn about live streaming. It's not like I've figured any of this out. Okay, well, anyway, thanks, guys. Aaron Rahill's in the house here joining us. Looks like we're about ready to get going. Jet City Comics, and I see. Okay, all right. Well, let's get down to the news. All right, so we did the sound check already, so that was number 2 on my wish list item here. I'm going to stop making weird gestures with my hands to direct things, because I had a PTZ camera right over my head. And when I make strange, gestures like this over it, it tells it to do things like record or not record and stuff like that. And I'm just going to have to unlearn all the things they taught me in public speaking class about how you're supposed to make pointy gestures or not make them and so forth. Like one of the things they tell you if you like go do public speaking is don't make the one where you just stick your finger right down people's throats, because it's considered incredibly rude in many cultures. A lot of times they'll get you punched in the face. And so they teach you to do all these very strange alternate hand wavy gestures. And unfortunately that in this modern age of us also causes crazy stuff. But anyway, back to the news. So all right, a lot of stuff going on with both with us and behind the scenes of the comic world and so forth. I'm going to lead off with one of the things that's just put shockwaves through the comic industry this last week was a heritage auction of they were advertising it as like the nicest comic copy of Superman #1 they'd ever seen and so forth. And honestly, I think it's worth digging into the actual news on that particular auction, but it was a 9.0 copy. It was the legendary attic find. It's the one that somehow, even though it was buried under piles of old newsprint and things like that, there was a pile of comic books, including Superman #1. Not the first appearance of Superman, but an absolutely classic issue, obviously. But that was advertised as like the best known condition. It isn't. I mean, there are known 9.4 copies of it, or at least there were. But this one was a very solid one. They rated it 9.0, which I've got to say I have real misgivings about in terms of you can actually see damage on the cover. There's discoloration, there's clearly staple stress and so forth that's available just from the shot they show you through the slab, not to mention the whatever the condition of the pages must be. But it seemed to be a perfect case of the golden age key exception to all known grading standards, which is to say, hey, if we have like an Action 1 or a Detective 27 or Amazing Fantasy 15 or something like that, we're just that little, if it's a nice book, we're just that little extra bit loose with the grading standards. And anyway, but they gave this one a 9.0, but more importantly, they hyped it as the best known copy that had ever been seen. And it attracted interest like you've never seen. It got full-blown coverage all throughout all the, not just the comic book media coverage, but really the pop culture coverage in general. It got the kind of coverage that you almost saw for things like Death of Superman. And as a result, they absolutely blew the doors off this one at the auction. One of the story that everyone covered was that this formerly, you would think about this as about a $2 million book, sold for $9.1 million, which I'm not sure if that even included or didn't include the 15% buyer's premium, but it was a hell of a lot of money. It evaluated out to something like a $10 million near mint value, if you were just to run the numbers on the whole thing. And this is absolutely exceptional. No one has seen anything like this. I'm pretty sure if they hadn't advertised it one way or another, I think it's very likely, looking at the auction results of that overall auction, that this was the highest grossing auction in comic history, including when Action #1s have come up for sale. Because not only did that $9.1 million copy of Superman #1 sell, but behind it were just dozens and dozens of fairly good, and sometimes very high-end Gold and Silver Age books that were just blowing the doors off the expected results. I was going through the auction results to incorporate them into the history that we track for ComicBase. And and I was posting on the internal Slack forums. It was one crazy, like, I can't believe what I'm seeing moment after another as I'm going through the whole thing. Not only, honestly, the one I was least shocked about was the Superman #1. Behind that were things like we had just tracked early issues of, say, Captain America comics and things like that. A week, 2 weeks earlier, the same issues sometimes that were actually going for a little bit actually disappointing values. They were actually selling for less than it would have been predicted by the metrics in ComicBase for their CGC values, and suddenly they're selling for like 3 and 4 times what those values would have been. There were particularly high-end Silver Age books where there was like a 9.9 copy of some book where the 9.8 copy of it, I think it was like it might have been a Fantastic Four 1, or it was Fantastic Four #3 or something like that. But the Fantastic, the 9.8 copy had come in a little under what you would have expected. Still, again, nice book, doing very well. The 9.9 copy went at like 3 or 4 times the expected value. Absolutely psychotic. I think, my personal bet for who overpaid the most at that auction, I would put that down for, I think it was $23,500 for Amazing Spider-Man number 300. This is a comic book from the 90s, for God's sake. They printed hundreds of thousands of these. This particular one was in very nice shape. Fine, whatever. They were all in very nice shape because we all bought them and immediately said, "Ooh, it's a golden age of foil. It's got, Venom on the cover." And so we all dutifully took ours home, stuck them in our plastic bags and boarded them and bought extra copies for the collection. We all did this at the time. This, I think, it was like a $1.52 book. Anyway, this thing sold, granted, signed by Todd McFarlane and John Romita Sr., Jr., I'm not sure, but the John Romita that worked on the book, which, again, were signatures anyone who attended a comic convention all through the 90s could have easily gotten just for the price of standing in line. For John Romita, God help us, he didn't even just stand in line. He just walk up and say, "Hey, why would you sign my book?" But anyway, this thing sold for $23,500. I got nothing. A Batman: The Killing Joke in basically perfect condition. I think it had a PSA 100 grade, which means it's a 10.0 under their scale. But again, it's not like we didn't sell hundreds of thousands of these books. But a perfect copy of Batman: The Dark Knight number 1, which was what, a $1.50, $1.95 book from the 80s. $7,800. It was just, anyway, absolutely crazy making stuff. The stuff that personally stresses me out is looking over how much people were willing to throw at better than average, but not outstanding. I mean, like, you could say, yeah, okay, a 9.9 as opposed to a 9.8. Honestly, this is an entirely gratuitous grading standard when applied to a modern comic book. But how much money people were willing to throw at that compared to just the 1/2 of a tick of a point less, and it was like 10 and 20 times sometimes. That makes me personally nuts because to me it underscores how grifty the whole mechanism really kind of is around professional grading. At some point, if someone were to discover that there was a vast payola conspiracy involved in the comic book industry, which involved price label printers and money changing back and forth for the exchange of little numbers on paper to be slabbed in plastic and never personally examined by another human being again, and turning that into instant unfathomable wealth, it would not surprise me in the slightest. I'm not saying that went on, but oh my God, it would be the most predictable crime novel, TV drama ever if it ever did, be revealed that was what was going on. The thing I can understand is that what I can see through the plastic is so different than the published grading standards when you refer to things like the allegedly 9.0 copy of Superman number 1. I'm like, okay, I guess it's just an exception in the rules for this one. But anyway, it was definitely shockwaves in the market. It will be very, very interesting to see how this all gets averaged into the week's pricing. Might not be as pronounced as I would just naively have thought. I'm not typically the person who processes the auction results. That person is out on paternity leave right now. But looking through them myself, I was greatly, greatly relieved when I looked through the code that analyzes average pricing and basically takes prices for incredibly high CGC books and incredibly low CGC books and just throws them out. It does not consider them part of the rolling average. And so when you talk about, if a 9.9 copy of something sold for 20 times what you would have been expected to sell for otherwise, not just 20 times the near mint price, but 20 times the previous 9.9 price, I was happy to see that isn't getting averaged into the mix, because otherwise all of our books, all of our comic book collections would be worth like about $1 billion tomorrow, and that's nuts. Anyway, absolute craziness. I imagine they absolutely got out the really, really good champagne over at Heritage Auctions, and whoever sold their collection off that night did very, very well for themselves. Mazel tov. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. You have much to be thankful for. Anyway, that was that. Let's see here. Yeah, Jesse says, "Why can't I have find a pile of comics like that?" Yeah, I don't. It's everyone's dream. Is that they buy a new house, they go up to the attic, and underneath all those old boxes that the old person left behind, there will suddenly be a chest, and inside that chest will be a bunch of perfectly preserved whatever. It still happens. It's rarer than it that you'd happen, but that's why these things are magical, because the dream lives on. We all could think of ourselves as just saying, we had some old junk in my my great aunt Edna's cupboard here. She said she thought there were some magazines and comic books over there. If you'll come help clean up the attic, you can have whatever you take. That's the dream, right? And it does still occasionally happen to people. Anyway, we'll see what happens. All right. Other things going on. We got our new books in from Penguin, and we got them on a Wednesday, which means that I no longer understand anything about the comic shipping. For 2 months since we Diamond imploded, and we've been getting books shipped in from Penguin. We've been getting them on Friday. We suddenly got them on Wednesday. Lunar's also expected in today, which means, oh my God, New Comic Book Day might be back to being Wednesday. If so, that would be amazing, because then we could push a single update this week and not have to worry about do we do Wednesday and Friday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll let you know. As of 4 o'clock, the mail had not come with Lunar yet, so I haven't gotten those in. But Penguin, UPS dropped off several boxes on our door today, and we got them indexed. So happy about that. And wouldn't it be great if we had a single drop of an update on Wednesday night? Because that would be great for everyone. All right, other things going on. We are going to be closed on Thursday and Friday because, well, Thanksgiving, and we're not heathens. And then Friday, because day after Thanksgiving, I think there's a name for it in America. Is it Black Friday, something like that? Yeah, weird. Anyway, and on that note, I'm going to advise everyone, make sure that you are on the ComicBase mailing list. Take a moment, right this moment. Go to www.comicbase.com. Go under My Account, and then I believe it's either under Contact or it might be under Profile. I'm gonna examine that right this second myself, just so I can give you guys good advice, because we don't send out an enormous amount of mail. And I'm just going to say that for all the people who are on the ComicBase mailing list, there's a mail that will be going out. And yes, it's under Profile, My Account, and then Profile, especially to people who are on the exclusive ComicBase customers list, but also the ComicBase announcements list. Not a bad one to be on. I'm going to say there's a mail you're going to want to get. So double check, make sure you're on there. If you've ever hit the unsubscribe, we always take you immediately off of that list. We don't ask you twice. We don't make you fill out a form. We just take you off. So if for whatever reason you've fallen off that list, now would be an excellent time to get back on, because cool things are coming your way. All right. With that said, all right, back to my show notes. Okay. Yes. New barcode scanners. Yes. Let me pop this back over here. These just came in, and we just got a chance earlier today to fire them up. And look at this beautiful thing here. No wires around them. There they are. And what this guy is doing, which is quite amazing, and it's brand new. We have had barcode scanners in the past that were wireless, and they were good. They come with a little Bluetooth dongle, hooks onto your USB drive or your USB port on your machine, and it works great. These guys have that. And they also have one new feature, which nothing has ever had before. They can also connect via Bluetooth. So if you have a Bluetooth-compatible laptop, a tablet, or, yes, I've even tested it before, earlier today, even a phone, you can pair it to that. And, yes, use your scanner directly with that. No dongle required. You have the choice of using the dongle if you want to. That'll send it over I guess it's a 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection, which I don't know if that makes it wireless N. I don't know. It's one of those wireless things. But anyway, that does work as well. But also you have the ability to get Bluetooth, and also very importantly, we have stock on these again, because we were completely sold out of our old wireless scanners. We are giving these guys a shot, and if we like them, that'll be our scanner going forward, because I don't want to manage a million part numbers. We got one thing that was a mystery to us, and I hate to admit, still a bit of a mystery, is tariffs. So it seems like a very much a sliding target these days. We know what our landed cost on these ones is provisionally. It had a little asterisk on it, along with a note which says, oh yeah, we might be sending you an additional bill for tariffs on this one later. We'll keep you posted. Anyway, it's been a little while, and we can't find anyone who might be able to tell us what this additional bill might involve. And so I'm assuming at the moment that the bill isn't that much worse. So we managed to get these in. We're going to bring them in. We're going to put these on sale at a price very, very close to our other ones. The Bluetooth costs just a bit more. And so we're going to put these up not at $120, but for $129.95. Yes, we're doing the $129.95 thing. The round number thing with 120, I don't know, it wasn't that compelling or something. But anyway, so for less than $10 more, you can get yourself Bluetooth. These things are very slick, and more importantly, they're actually available now. We will be putting them up on the website very shortly. Again, the kind of time frame that you might want to get that email for. But look for that one very soon. All right, other things that are going on. Let me see here. Questions have come in while I've been out there. DA Liberty should rename it to Black November, since everyone's put discounts price on for the entire month. Yeah, no, I totally get it. We have had that debate internally here forever as to when do we do any kind of Black Friday sale. And I think we might have, during COVID, we might have at once just lost all will to live and said, oh, whatever, we'll do it whenever. But honestly, basically from right after Thanksgiving until basically the week of after that. I mean, I guess once upon a time it was cool that things were Cyber Monday and stuff like that. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, or anything other than the legends of marketing. I mean, at this point, you almost have to be like a boomer to realize when people didn't shop online. So not that excited about that, but yeah, no, I've always been a big fan of hold the line until the actual Black Friday. So if there is a Black Friday thing that we become involved with, that would be when that's happening. All right, let's see here. ComicBase TV. Bryce says, can the beep be disabled or volume limit on the new scanner? My dog freaks out when it beeps. Yes, there is a way. There is a way to. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think there's a way to completely turn it off, and I know there's a way to both change how loud it is and also the frequency. Some of that's on the setup sheet, and if you look more in the full manual, which is linked right on the website, you can find a million cool little tweaky codes you can use to configure the scanners with all sorts of different bells and whistles, or lack thereof bells and whistles. Be really cool if you could make it, you have different sounds other than just a beep. But yeah, no, the one that I use on my desk, which is this one, I have a little piece of white, nail polish I've done to mark it just so I don't confuse it with anything else. I've turned this one down and made it less annoying and so forth, just because, yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. It's like whenever I hear the barcode either timing out or going off, it's like, yeah, I like quiet. So I like hearing something, but I don't like hearing it nearly as loud as the people who make the barcode scanner. Apparently are very proud of their scanner and want everyone around the house to be able to know, that you were scanning things. All right. So that is that on that. And okay. And now next big news. There is a new version of ComicBase out. You can get this right now if you go under Setup. Actually, let me go ahead and put that up right now and show you where to go to look for it. So putting up the demo machine, which is up there. Yes. If you have not done this before, and I know I've shown this to you before, let me go ahead and turn on the magnifier so I can get that going. Yes, under Setup, make sure you've gone to Setup Preferences. And right at the top, it says, when you want to check for updates, do you want to do it? And I would suggest do it every time the database is open. So you can make it once a day, once a week, etc. I mean, if your internet is just complete garbage, sure, make it once a day, once a week. But if you have any like standard internet like anyone else, every time you open a database, and then the magic box right now is called check for interim updates. Because if you do that, you get tomorrow's updates first. And I'll tell you about what tomorrow's update is because, well, there's a good chance it's actually coming out officially tomorrow. But you can get it today should you wish. That update right now is called, there's a good chance for marketing purposes, we will call it 26.1. At the moment, it's known as 26.0.4, build, I believe, 26.20 29 or something. Let me go ahead and double check the actual build number. But it does some heavy, cool stuff. Some of which is really 2624 is the magic number for the current build. But anyway, some of the stuff is super exciting to us, and some of it we hope will be very exciting to you. So I'll start with the stuff that is exciting to you, and then we'll get around to the rest of it. So if you've ever had a problem with saving up to the cloud, where you get a message saying, yeah, no, I can't save to the cloud right now because a file's in use by another process, and it doesn't it won't do the compression necessary before it submits to the cloud. Maybe you've had this problem, maybe you haven't had this problem, maybe you've had it sometimes. Some people have had it, and it's been a real showstopper because saving to the cloud is really necessary in order to get the new mobile app to really do all the things that it does. And although I personally don't have it on any computer that I use, we have seen it on a number of other people's machines, and we did manage to figure out why Windows was doing that. It was basically holding a file open just a little too long, and we found a fix which makes it so it no longer does that. So anyway, if you've had that problem, that is going to be a absolute life changer for you. So make sure you download that one. When you do download the update, by the way, restart your machine afterwards, because this is a Sidekick thing. It's not just the ComicBase program. You want to make sure that you've exited Sidekick and that it has a chance to load the new Sidekick. But if so, that should take care of that problem for you. Now, something that makes me very happy personally is we managed to do they call it a refactoring. If you're a geek, basically we took the way a lot of heavy ComicBase code was structured at one point, and we, if you care about the geek stuff, it basically comes down to we fleshed out a polymorphic class. So basically, whether something's a book, a magazine, a newspaper, a comic book, you might notice that there's a lot of things that are quite similar between all those things, and there's some things that are not similar at all. So for instance, some fields have ISSN numbers, some do not. Some things, some of those collectibles have colorists, some do not. Some of them have release dates, some of them have street dates, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of stuff that is similar about them. Well, one of the things that we did when we were building out the database the first time is it created different classes to handle the different types of collectibles, but we basically refactored everything into one big polymorphic uber class, which it makes it so we can handle everything very, very conveniently to the programming. It's like, why the hell do I care? The answer is you probably don't, because it works exactly the same as it did before, except we care because it basically makes it much nicer for us as we're programming. And the other thing it did is it shaved about 10,000 lines of code out of the ComicBase code database. So it makes it so it's much nicer for us to maintain. We don't have to worry about changing things in 4 different places when something about those bits changes and so forth. And so it's a really nice modernization that we've been wanting to get around to for a long time. We finally did. All right, so what's the matter to you? Probably nothing at all. But one thing that came along with that is it gave us a chance to go back and revisit, because as we're revisiting this architecture that we put in place in 2020, it gave us a chance also to revisit some of the way that the tables themselves were set up. So when we talk about how comics are stored in the database, how the newspaper is stored in the database, and how they're called indexes, basically lookup tables, how all those are arranged, and we got the chance to basically put to work some of the things that we've learned over the years of what winds up being really useful and what really not so much. And so as a result, when you first download this new 26.0.4, it's going to take a little longer than usual to update, typically because it's going to make a lot of database changes. So set aside an extra minute or two as you want. It's just because it's going to say things about how it's modernizing the comic tables, the newspaper tables, the issue, the magazine tables, the book tables, whatever you've got, set as one of your standard collectibles. And then you'll see it also rebuilding indexes for a few minutes. When that's done, and so after, again, depending on the speed of your machine. On my machine, it's like a minute, 2 minutes. Your machine, if it's your old school, might be a little more. But when that's done, something else kind of magical happens. Is not only does it run just as fast as before, but you will notice that your database takes about 17.5%, just to take a number at random. No, it's actually the number we measured. 17.5% less space, because we're able to basically optimize how the data is structured and how we lay out indexes in a way. So if you had the full ComicBase database with all the stuff, with all the trimmings, you have the archive edition, you have the newspapers in there and so forth, it was taking about 4 gigabytes to store all that data, which, hey, for millions and millions of books, magazines, comics, and newspapers and so forth, not so bad. But now it takes about just a little bit over 3 gigabytes, 3.2 gigabytes to 3300K, in particular. So it's a pretty good diet we set it on. So that's pretty good, and it also kind of carries throughout when you guys do things like saving backups, especially if you're saving them in the new CBCB format, which is a ComicBase compressed backup that we introduced with ComicBase 2026. You'll see that those things will save in it could be as small as 140 megabytes to save a backup of your database. So huge amounts of less disk space for you guys. So that's a pretty cool thing. We just slipped that in there, and we wrapped up all that work just this last couple of days. So if you haven't tried it before, please check that out. We'll be making it into the official release. We're probably just going to call it ComicBase 26.1, because let's face it, we've done rather a lot of stuff since the ComicBase 26.0 went off, and so this is kind of a big deal. So check that out and let us know what you think. Yes, and Brian Stewart says polymorphic recursive loops are way more fun. Yeah, no, it's and Dr. Beat says polymorphism is your friend until it's not. Yeah, no, there's I mean, if you know enough to know what the I'm talking about when I say polymorphism, and that's not just a spaceman spiff riff. You guys know the issues in and out of the whole thing. I mean, there's a reason it didn't get done until now. It's one of those things where, like, at any given moment, as you're building things or working with things in ComicBase, it's always easier to keep doing the thing you'd been doing and just do the one little tweak. But we found ourselves, honestly, we wrapped up everything we had to do for a day. It was Friday. It was like 2 o'clock, and it's too early to go out for a beer, and everyone else in the office was busy, and so I was like, I don't know, I could have a look at this. And so that became something that became an absolute obsession for all sorts of late night adventures for about 6 or 7 days, running, until we finally got this all ironed out. But now it's ironed out, I'm feeling pretty good about it. So hopefully you guys will dig it. All right, let me see what else is going on. Okay, so that's it for the chat at the moment. All right, I'm going to try to, because it's been kind of a rocky start on this whole thing. I'm going to talk about a couple of tech tips that people have been asking for, and then I'm going to park it for the day, unless you guys have other questions. If you have questions that you want to ask, and this is actually one of the things that has come up, is people said, hey, I'm watching the live stream, I have a question, and I don't know how to ask the question. How do I do that? I'm very sympathetic to this, by the way. It very much depends on where you're watching. So first, the best thing to do is be watching on YouTube on your computer. You can do it on your phone. It's a little hard to get to. Depends on your phone's interface and something as to whether or not you can pull up the chat very easily. But if you're watching on YouTube on your computer, make sure you're signed into YouTube. So if you're actually signed in, you're not just, you didn't just pull up YouTube, but you've actually logged in. It says, like, I'm Bob Smith or whatever my name is. At that point, then typically you're allowed to comment on the chat. Otherwise, typically, I believe you just get to watch the chat rolling by, and it won't open up the all-important text field at the bottom that allows you to type and say what you're thinking. So do log into YouTube. It's a useful thing. And that way also remembers what sorts of things you like watching and gives you more of them, and doesn't just spam you with, apparently, well, I at some point we were just firing up a TV in the house earlier today that YouTube had not been logged into for whatever reason, or somehow had lost its login. And the default topics, if you are not logged in, I don't have words. It involves roadblocks and brain squishing and whatever, and it's like it's a madscape out there. You don't want any part of it. So log into YouTube that's definitely the way to go. Yeah, Steve Dassinger, number one, ComicBase TV programming rule number 1: never make major changes late on a Friday. In my defense, I wasn't going to ship it on Friday. I'm not a fool. I was just going to quietly do the changes to myself and then I thought, well, how long can that take? And then you got into it, and then you wound up saying, well, that's fine. I'm 95% of the way there. And then it turns out that, to get the other 5%, I'll have to do, lots and lots of stuff. So yeah, as a result, I was kind of in a locked away stream of my own there for about a week. That's why, if you didn't notice that there weren't a lot of comic-based builds last week until just recently, it's because I was still in hell on my own machine. So that was one of those things. ComicBase TV, new mobile app demo. What's really new on this version? Yeah, I will be going through that. I will not be going through that today. On the other hand, it's just been kind of one of those things. I'll probably do it first thing as soon as we get back from the break. But as you might imagine, it's been a bit of a heavy load getting to where we're going right now, and I want to do a proper demo of the new version. And one of the things that really helps on that is if you're able to save your stuff up to the cloud without it saying the process is holding a file in use. So I want to make sure everyone's smooth on that and all pretty good. And then I'll show you a bunch of cool new stuff, as well as some stuff that we have in the works for the mobile app, because the mobile app isn't just that we moved heaven and earth to rewrite the entire thing in a new language and take on all the load ourselves, as opposed to third partying it through other freelancers and revising all the back end routines it talks to and all the other things like that. No, it's more than that. We actually are basically seeing the mobile app now as much more of a platform going forward in its own right. Beforehand, the mobile app was very much limited to look at your stuff on the go, maybe do a quick ad or two to it. And we're no longer limited in that way. And so you're going to be seeing a definite shift in the weight of where we do some of our development moving forward too. And so I want to get this off on a solid footing on the whole thing. I don't want to just half-ass the demo of that one. So look for it probably next week when we get back from things. Let me see here. Okay, so I think it's about all we got in the chat to address right now. Okay, so let me talk about a couple of quick tech tips, and then let's get the hell out of here. All right, so tech tip number 1. Oh, yes. Oro says, yes, and if you log into YouTube, you plaster your favorite duck left of your chat. That's a thing that can happen, because otherwise, how would we know who that you are if we didn't have a duck icon to look at you? That is a fair point. Okay, so, all right, if you guys have ever had the problem where you are coming back into ComicBase from a long time away and you're updating prices, but you're seeing that some of them don't update, and gosh darn, you really think they should have updated after all this time, and you're wondering what's going on. Now, typically the magic recipe for running into this problem is that you get skipped a version or 2 or 3, and you're just kind of getting back into stuff. Another thing can happen is if the magic is that if you've ever said things like, as I update, let me not update my prices, so forth. Anyway, you can get into a situation, and let me show you what you got to change, and I'll tell you a little bit about what's behind it, where the update isn't updating everything. It's not actually meant to update everything in your database every single time you run it, because that would be tedious, but sometimes you want a full reset, and let me tell you about how to get that. So what I'm talking about here is, let's say I go ahead and I say check for updates. Now, I've actually already updated this database with everything that's current, but I'm going to go ahead and hold down the shift key, by the way, bonus tip there, and here's our typical update dialog. Now, if we look up at the top here, right at the top says updates and item values and prices. And by default, it's going to say, look, update items with the current guide values, and also update your selling prices to match those current guide values. Now, with that said, you don't need to do it. I mean, you could say, no, I like setting my own prices. I think I know better than you what the values are, and maybe you're right. So, but if whatever you choose on the whole thing, it's up to you. So, if you had ever gone in here and say, nah, I just go ahead and give me new stuff, but I don't change my values on anything. So you're absolutely within your right to have gone and done that. Now, one thing about the way the update works is, you guys might know that we support, let me see, and I bet this isn't going to work, but yeah, no, it did not. Okay, let me switch back cameras here. One thing I figured out as I did the restart just now is I did not have a chance to set my green screen keying properly. So you're stuck with me full screen. So I apologize for any trauma that may cause anyone right now. But it's supposed to be a little circle off to the right or something. No, the other right. This one. Yeah. Anyway, when you guys do an update, so what's really going on is you've got a database. It's full of, how, depending on which collectibles you're tracking, you might have 5 million odd items in your database, between the newspapers, the books, the magazines, collections, so forth. Now, we actually download a new list of everything that's in our master database into your database temporarily, and then what we do is we say, okay, what's different? And we kind of compare and contrast and say, all right, did the name of this thing over here change? Did they put a different cover date over here? Did they put a different price over here? And anything that changed, you'll notice that when it runs an update, it'll go through several steps. It'll say, okay, what's brand new, what's changed, and what it was in the old one that's no longer in the new one, and you've said it's okay to get rid of. In other words, a typical example of that would be something whose name had changed or its designation had changed, and if it wasn't marked as in stock, what that does allows us to flush it out. Well, anyway, that, all things considered, is about 5 million items that it would be changing, and that would take an insanely long amount of time. Insanely long in this case, depending on modern computer, 15 minutes. But who's got 15 minutes in 2025? We're busy people here. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to change all 5 million things if nothing relevant changed. And in particular, you don't want to change the prices of 5 million things if the price didn't change. Well, how do we know the price didn't change? Well, one complicating factor we've got here is that we do business all around the world. And so some of you people watching might be watching from Belgium or Australia or Canada or some other place, anyway, so your foreign, currency may be utterly different, than, or your currency on your machine may be completely different than what we have. So just because I see that the price of Defenders, what we got here, Defenders 4th series, number 1, I see that is a $3 comic book. Maybe for you it's a 3 pound, would it be about a £2.50 comic book, or a forget where the euro is in relation to the dollar right now, or maybe if it's I guess I'm not sure if they have Mexican pesos anymore, but if Japanese yen, if you have something like that, this thing could be like a 60,000 yen comic book. And that's all perfectly fine. It's not looking for a match on 60,000 yens exactly. What it's looking for is there's a hidden field behind all of this stuff, which is to say, what was your last US dollar current value? And so whatever your local value in your country or your database is, it has a separate field that typically we don't show you, which is what was the last value in US dollars. So then when we download the update, what we do is we say, okay, did the US dollar value change from the last time we saw this thing over there? And depending on what you've been doing, you might be in a position where, yeah, you really actually want to update your price, but because the US dollar values match, since the last time you're doing it, and maybe you had it set in such a way that, yeah, okay, we know what the current US dollar matches, but at the time when that happened, I had it also set to not update my prices. If that had happened to you at any point in the past, and like I said, the reason I say in the past is because we've gotten pretty good against guarding against this exact situation as things went on. But if your database was much older and you had it set to not update at some point, it might have recorded that the US dollar value had changed, but it also knew, hey, but I don't want to change my guide values to match what your theoretical value is. I don't want to update my prices to match that one. So don't change my database. Well, nowadays, we see that if you'd ever been off, had that value turned off, and you ever turn it back on, that means all bets are now off. Now we have to look at everything to know whether or not you fell out of sync with the whole thing. But if your database was quite old, like before we figured out that this was a possibility some years ago, you might have a database that really needs updating, and it's got prices that are stubbornly refusing to update until, and the magic trigger is until, their value changes since the last time the US dollar value changed again. So, until Hulk 181 goes from being a $5,200 comic book to a $5,300 comic book, you won't see that the price has changed at all, because we didn't, last time we looked at it was $5,200, and so even though you've got it still marked at $1,800 because you hadn't changed your prices since back then, our little trigger didn't get set back in place yet. So the question comes up, well, how do I reset the damn trigger in case I really want to go ahead and force an update across my entire database? So I'm sure that my prices aren't being updated as much as I wish they would. How do I force them to update the whole bloody thing? And that's the longest setup for a tech demo tip that I hope ever to do again. But here's how you do it. So if you come up under here, now, and I'll be fair, there are some shorter ways to get there, but they involve hidden keystrokes and things like that, that every time we use them in a tech tip and so forth like that, we always wind up answering tech support mail on them about like, well, no, I pressed the thing down, but I didn't see the thing and so forth. And so it never goes wrong. So I've learned the hard way that the best way to tell people how to do this particular tip is this. Come up here under update. So when you go and do an update, and by the way, if you hold down shift, here you are, a secret key. But if you've already updated, hold down shift, say I want to update again, and basically do the trigger that we now know was the problem. So what you do is turn this off. Say, yeah, I want to go ahead and update, and I want you to not change my values, right? And then go ahead and let it run for a second. So what we're doing here is we're starting an update. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And as soon as it starts, go ahead and stop it. Doesn't matter. Because all we want to do, and here's really what the trigger is. We want to say, we go down here, I'm going to hold down the shift key, check for updates again. I didn't even finish that last one, but we want this exact thing to happen, which is we want to see if the last time you were updating, you had it set to not change your values, and now I want to change my values. And as soon as we see that you've done that, we will say, uh-oh, it's possible he has US dollar values in his database that have not been updated for quite a while. So let's force it to reset all the US dollar values to be what their current value is and do it. So now when you update, it's going to say updating pricing flags. And this will take a moment. And basically it's nuking them all out to be their current values, regardless of what they were before. If this is a U.S. database, and then as soon as that is done, what you'll see is it will go start the update again, but the update will take quite a bit longer than usual because it's going to go ahead and update every bloody item in your database to be the current guide value. So that's a thing that can happen. If it happens to you, that is probably the most straightforward way I can describe of how to force it to do an update. So had a customer, as you might imagine, called up this week who had was coming back to ComicBase after some years off, and I could tell that exact thing had happened to him, and it happened during the years we didn't know to watch for it. And so as a result, he had mothballed values where like, yeah, most things are right, but there's a few big ones that are not getting updated right. And he calls out it. So I wanted to share that tech tip with you all now. So, all right, let me see here. I'm not even sure what Scott's on for about right now in the chat. Okay. All right. So other things that are going on. Talked about the resetting prices trick. Okay, real quick, some other general tips that people have asked about. They said, okay, what do I do if I've got a book in my database that doesn't look like you guys are listing? And I'm just going to give some brief advice on this one. So there's a tech tip on this one. If you just go under ComicBase.com, go under support and look for tips and tricks. I think it's about the 7th item down is something like, I can't find name of my favorite comic book here. What do I do? And it'll list the basics on this one. Basically, it comes down to take the weirdest word in the title, see if you can find it by that. So if it's called Spider-Man Chaos in Calgary, or The Amazing Spider-Man Chaos in Calgary, well, amazing is not a particularly, unique word. Spider-Man, definitely terrible search term because there's way too many comic book things. But if you type things like Calgary, especially these days in ComicBase, it'll do a couple of different things. One is it's the best way to find a comic book that's it's not popping up by normal means, because if you choose the weirdest word that's definitely in the title, it'll do two things. One is it won't have a million other things to get lost in. So, I mean, I imagine there's not a million things called Calgary. But the other thing we'll do these days is we have a new field called the item title field, which is really good in this particular case. For instance, the one I'm referring to right now, I believe, was part of a thing that's officially called the Spider-Man Public Service Series. But we have this new item title field now for every issue in the database, which says, yeah, this is a way I can put a title down, which is not its official title, but which is probably the thing that's in bold print on the cover, which is easier to find. So for the Spider-Man Public Service Series number 5 or whatever this thing was, if you were just looking at the book, it would be saying Spider-Man Chaos in Calgary. And so this actually will let pop up as Spider-Man, or Calgary, parenthesis, named items in other titles. And that'll give you the cross-reference. It'll pop up anything like that where it's already listed in there. And if before anyone calls me out in the chat and says, wait, I just tried Calgary, it's not in there. It's because I remember this one because I just added it as a cross-reference because someone was confused about this exact same thing yesterday. Let me see here. People also ask on the forum with good information, possibly cover scan, and someone may be able to have help find it for them. Yeah, not a bad idea. Another way that's a question. Sorry. Before I go off onto yet another tangent, which you might guess that I'm somewhat prone to. So, number one tip is go by the weirdest item in the title. Look for if you see it says that there are things that are named that, but they're listed in other titles. Go ahead and follow that link. See what it gives you. That very well likely get you there. If it's got a barcode, absolutely slam dunk, absolutely the way to go in terms of finding anything is make sure just enter in, even if you don't have a barcode scanner. And if you don't have a barcode scanner, look for these. Very, very handy. But if you do, enter in all the human readable digits and nothing else, but make sure you get the entire barcode, including the small digits on the right. But anything that you're reading as a digit, try typing that into the find field up top. Almost certainly, if this was ever a barcode issue, it's just going to find it for you. That's absolutely the easiest way to go on any of this stuff. Now onto a tangent on this whole thing about, well, if you don't find it by all the normal means of things like that, how else might you be able to get to it? Posting a picture of it onto the ComicBase forums, not a bad way to go. And people have asked, actually, because it's funny, because there's a company that sells this as a service, and they're saying, well, all the cool people are doing this. Are you sure you don't want to buy a license to do it, for your software as well? Which is to say, take a picture of something, and we'll tell you what item in the database it was. The way it works is they basically compute a key. It's kind of like the way that, like, if you're listening to a song on the radio, and you're wondering, hey, what is that thing? If you've pre-computed the hash of what essentially the signature of the songs are, at different points, and you just run that and you see if you can, get a similarity comparison according to what's coming in someone's microphone. Well, then suddenly you are able to identify any song in a database that has been similarly encoded that way. Well, you can do something similar with images. So, for instance, if I take a picture of a comic book cover, I can compute a signature for it. And then if I take another smartphone picture of it, I can say, well, this one's got much the same signature as the other thing, and I can do a database search against that signature, and then I've got half a decent chance of finding it. Now, what are the things where that doesn't work great? Well, I mean, how good was the picture you took of your with your smartphone? A huge factor. How similar are comic book covers to each other? That is an annoying one, especially when you get into variants of things where, yeah, this is exactly like the other one, except on this one it has green logo type, and the other one has blue logo type. Those suck. But the other problem that most people have with the whole thing is most people don't have a big enough database of base pictures to really make the whole thing work. It winds up being kind of a slow way to find things. That being said, it's a way, and I'm in favor of having different ways of finding things. For me personally, if I'm looking for something, number one thing I do is I look for the barcode. If I can find the barcode, I'm done. I found it in a second. I'm done. If I can't find it by the barcode, I'll look at the thing. I might open it up, find the indicia of the whole thing. I'll type a couple words off of the indicia. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the one right there. Put the issue number in, boom, I'm looking at it, or I'm looking at a variant of it. It's not generally a problem for me when I'm looking for comic books. That being said, I do understand that there are people who kind of don't know how to approach the situation, or we're just honestly, as just kind of a geek trick, it's kind of a fun geek trick. And so it is something that I might do later on, because it's kind of a fun thing to do, because we actually do have the biggest library of comic database images, I think, probably, that's relevant to the subject at hand. And it might be a fun thing to do. That being said, if we do it, expect it to be markedly slower than all the other methods of finding a comic book. So I wouldn't hold up for us to do something like this. I'd say if we do it, then say like, oh yeah, it's a good trick, but it might be useful. In which case, like I say, if I ever find myself a little bit of time on my hands, I know how the trick it works, and I kind of know how the algorithm to generate all the codes works. So yeah, it's something you might see from us in the future. But like I say, in practical terms, it tends not to be the super bestest way to look up anything. I would try every other method literally before I tried looking up it that way. I would do that only as an absolute fallback if all the normal ways weren't available. ComicBase Age the Camp says, with a glut of foil covers now, does anyone have a way to get a scanned picture of them that looks halfway decent? Yeah, taking pictures of foil covers is a pain in the tuchus. When they were huge in the 90s, it's funny because they're kind of coming back. Foil covers are bad. Holographic covers actually look halfway. I mean, they don't look like what you see with your eyes when you take a scan of them, but at least they look like something. Foil covers look like a dimmed down version of the main thing. The ones that really suck are the silver ink, gold ink ones, because if you're looking at those ones here, they're metallic inks. If you look at them with your eyes, they're all shiny and metallic looking. But if you look at them flat on with just a scanner, because when you put them on a scanner, the light source is right in front of the whole thing. You have a light source that's basically waving right down in front of the book like this, shining at it. So the light is bang on, and because it doesn't have a chance to sparkle off of it, it doesn't have any light that's coming back to it that isn't directly from the light it was projected. The thing gives it that metallic effect is the incident light. It's the stuff that's coming from a weird angle, which then sparkles up. It gets a very high brightness value. The metallic tones almost always come back as pure black, instead of looking silver or instead of looking gold. Those are really the hard ones. And honestly, I have never found a good solution to that one, other than if you've got a really steady hand or a way to take a picture with a camera, that's probably going to give you a picture that's more lifelike. The way you would do it for real, if you were going to take a picture of it in all its glory, is you would set up a large diameter lens, camera, and you put the thing back quite a ways, and you'd hope that you could correct for it's called the spherical distortion, the fact that flat square images tend not to stay flat and square when you take pictures of them with round things like lenses. But if you could take it in a beautifully lit portrait studio, that's the ideal thing. Your scanner, which is almost always the way to take pictures of these things for anything else, that's the one thing you don't want to take a picture of them with for any kind of metallic cover. The foil covers are just, like I say, they just come back dull. When we get production art that we get from publishers on those ones, typically what we're really getting is we're getting the pre-production proofs of what they're doing. So in other words, if I were going to print off a foil cover of, sorry, let me grab something. So if I were going to print off my own personal, I'm Marvel, and I'm going to print off my own foil cover of this Fantastic Four over here. What it really is it's got a 4-color, or actually technically a 5-color image. Actually, no, this one would be a 4-color, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black of the base image over here. And then what I'd be doing is I'd be printing it either on metallic stock or, depending on what effect I'm looking for, I might be going for a chromium overlay or something like that. But I know what the base image should have looked like, and I know what the foil will kind of do. And what I'm really going to do is I'm going to take the 4-color regular image, and I'm going to throw an effect on top of it to simulate what the foil might kind of a little bit look like. And then that's the thing I'm going to go to, that I'm going to go to my publicity with. It's not the thing that rolls off the press. The thing that rolls off the press winds up being kind of unphotographable by normal means. Unless, like I say, if you've got a portrait studio where you can throw lots of soft light all the way around it and shoot it with a lens, like if you have a Hasselblad laying around, perfect. A Panaflex would do great. But if you don't have that, yeah, use your camera phone. It's going to be not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, well, I think that is about it for me right now. I'm going to move on from that because we're talking about stream freezes and things like that. And honestly, I'm getting a little talked out. Guys, have a terrific Thanksgiving. Do check out the new build. Shoot comments about to support, well, actually just P. Bickford at human-computing.com. But I hope you guys really enjoy it. I was really happy to see that we were able to shrink the database size as much as we were. That's always a win. I mean, just smaller is better. Smaller code is better than bigger code in general. And it certainly, I like that it did some things that make my brain feel much better while working on the program. But to the extent that I can make the program faster or smaller or just more efficient and more fun to use, that's actually where the win is, because it's all about you guys. So anyway, guys, thank you so much, and I will see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.